Thank you, Shirley, for that very nice statement, or statements. We spent a lot of time in Kosovo, and it's important to remember that it's now probably 40 years since I've been elected to Congress and discovered that my dad was an ethnic Albanian born in Italy. I found that out, and the details of that, after I was elected. But I think it's important to not only remember the Battle of Koshari and people like Agim Ramadani, who I came to know because of the trips I took to Jalan. There's so many heroes that are veterans, and it's beautiful that the people of Kosovo take the time to remember these veterans, because without those battles in the beginning, we would not have been prepared for the worst that came later with Slobodan Milosevic. Now, one of the things that I would like to talk about is the cleverness of the soldiers that fought in these battles. And let's not forget the most important soldier of all, Skanderbeg, George Castriati, who took on, at that time, in the 15th century, the largest army in the world. In fact, in one battle, he took on 250,000 soldiers, and he beat them. Over 25 years, he beat them in every battle. But why is it important to mention that? Because battles are not only won with weapons and planning, they're won with strategy. And Skanderbeg was probably the most clever soldier ever, because he invented, in effect, the battle ways that were used later on for guerrilla fighters to distract the enemy one way. And in reading some of the accounts of what went on in Koshari, I noticed that it was important for the enemy to be distracted to one hill while the main battle, I guess it was Koshari, that was being fought on another hill. And it shows you how clever the Albanians were, even 500 years later, when they were fighting the battles right there in Kosovo. In a way, being clever was one of the attributes that I had to employ when I went to Belgrade in 1989 to challenge Milosevic when we had the occupation of Kosovo. Because the people in the State Department did not want me to go. They said that I would be killed if I went to Kosovo during that occupation. But I did go, and I managed to even get into the press center in Belgrade, and I brought articles that the press had never seen. In fact, one of them was just the day before I left Washington, was with the Wall Street Journal on what was really going on. And I found out that of the dozen or so reporters that were with me at the press center, not one of them knew the facts. They didn't even know that the Wall Street Journal, the day before I arrived, had written a big article on how things were going so badly for Slobodan Milosevic. And I had to bring that to their attention. So there was a lot of misinformation when I got there, just as there is today in Preševa, in a place that right now is the front line for where maybe the next battle could be formed, because we know we've got the Russians, acting very badly, especially in the Ukraine, and they are probably getting ready to do something in Preševa, the most northern part of Kosovo, in order to attract attention from their own supporters and show the Russian people that they are even trying to do something to take back Kosovo. And we always knew that the Serbs have said Kosovo is their Jerusalem. So obviously it's important to them. But we know that's a lie, and that will never be a factor as far as Albanians are prepared, as they've been in the past, to deal with them. But in any case, today is the 12th of April, and a group came yesterday and will be with us this weekend, including Shaib Kimberi and our Ditet, and we will be talking about what we have to do in the future. It's not only the past that we have to remember, but we have to be prepared for what could happen in the future. And we need to now be on guard, that the Serbs have not stopped their challenges, and they're still making plans in those villages in the top part of Kosovo to do something to damage the governance of the Albanian people in that part. But remember, only 5% or less of the citizens of Kosovo are Serb. It's over 95% that are Albanian. But you wouldn't know that if you listened to the propaganda that comes out from Mr. Vucic and the Serbs that support him. So it's important that we now do what we did back then in 1989, and that's to tell the truth, to give the people the information they need in order to be prepared if anything happens in the north part. Now we do have independence of Kosovo, thankfully, because of the work that we did in the mid-'80s and we did in 1989. But again, I had to be very clever. I like to use that word because think of Skanderbeg taking on 250,000 soldiers from Sultan Murad II. How do you win when you have 10,000 horsemen, horse people, or cavalry, and 250,000 soldiers are coming from where Istanbul was at that time? But I had to be prepared to be clever because I needed to get to Kosovo, because I had to get down to where the capital was, and I had to go from Belgrade, and I had to find a way to go from Belgrade down to Pristina at that time when it was under occupation, and it was dangerous to go. So I had to divert people to think, especially Milosevic and his people, that I was only interested in coming to Belgrade. And at that time, the ambassador, Zimmerman, was so concerned that I could be killed on his watch because he didn't want me to come to begin with, and I had to go with a letter from Senator Dole and Congressman Gilman and Congressman Lantos. And I accomplished that, and I had to give that letter to Zimmerman so he would calm down and know that I had support from at least the Congress to be there. But that wasn't enough for him, and he got a car, then ordered a car to take me to the airport so I would go right back to the United States, to New York, which I didn't do. I said, how could I come here all this way and not go to Kosovo where I could pick up the information that I needed to show Congressman Tom Lantos how badly treated even the soldiers in the army, Albanian soldiers in the Yugoslav army, there was a couple of dozen of them that were killed, and the excuse that was given by Milosevic was that they were fighting in the war and these were soldiers and therefore they were killed in battle. But we found out later when some of the mothers opened the coffins, which they were not supposed to do, these people were shot in the back on the line. And I had to take the pictures that were taken to show that they were not, the bullet holes were not in the front, and also all the organs were removed from these soldiers and probably used on other soldiers that needed it, and these were probably Serbs. So there's a lot of stuff that was going on that we didn't know until I took those pictures back to Lantos, and that's when Lantos said, you know, Joe, you've been telling me for years about how the situation there for the Albanian people is so dire. And I said, well, Tom, Congressman Lantos, this is like World War II. This is like the Nazis again. And they lie about everything, just like the Serbs lie about everything. And it's important that I take these pictures back with me to Mr. Lantos so that he comes with me. That was November of 1989. And I was planning to take him with me in May of 1990 to Pristina so that we could see, they could get this information. And I did that. In fact, when we got there, thousands and thousands of people came out to greet me and Congressman Lantos, and it was just amazing to see the Serbs and the policemen and the Serb soldiers beating up thousands and thousands of Albanians right in front of Tom Lantos. And he said, this has to be now made public, and I'm happy you came so we can do that. And I remember when I walked into the hotel, I looked out the window on the second floor of the hotel, and I said, when I opened up the window in the name of Fanoli, Mos Gifrika Seke Jemten Amarik, in order to give a spirit of hope and courage to the Albanian people that they had to continually confront the Serbs in these rallies that they were beginning to have at that time in Pristina, by the Grand Hotel. That's where it was. So with that, I'm so happy that Shirley did her homework and we're able to thank the veterans today for what they did back there in the Battle of Koshari, and heroes like Agam Ramadani and all the others. These are important people to remember, just like we need to remember George Castriati. And right now we're even thinking of doing a film on him so the world knows where the Albanians got their genes, their courage, their cleverness. But I'm so happy to have this opportunity to be here to congratulate the veterans today for all they did back in the middle and late 80s and then in the 90s, so that we could have the independence of Kosovo, which we have now. Thank you.